Who was the biggest winners of the NFL draft? I think it was the Jaguars, and Julian might think it was the Panthers. And we both might be biased. We'll talk about that today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. And you can find us wherever you get podcasts. That's right. Whether you watch or listen, we will be there with bells on giving you NFL coverage. Make sure you check us out so you do not miss an episode like today that is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada draft pick of the week later on in the show. Newsflash. He plays for the team that I cover every day. All right. So we'll make sure that we hit that. Of course, my Monday guest always, my guest host is Julian Council of Locked On Panthers. Does a wonderful job up there. We're going to break it down for you, man. And I didn't even throw a 50-mile-per-hour softball today about the Jets. No, we'll get back to them later on. They actually did okay. Here's where Julie and I are going to land this thing. We're going to talk about the Browns, Eagles, and Commanders. Some interesting tidbits on what Cleveland is going to do moving forward, who the Eagles almost drafted, and the fact that the Commanders are going to play in a familiar but not too familiar place. It's something that me and Julian have a little bit of expertise on. The Shedeur drama, I think it was created by pundits. People are screaming at NFL GMs and claiming all of this stuff and this, that, and the third. No, the discourse was caused by people who don't do that for a living for real. Mm-hmm. And we'll discuss that in just a second. Look, Julian might agree with that. I heard Julian go, mm-hmm. We'll talk about the biggest winners right here in the first segment, though. I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars because they made a bold move. And in my opinion, they got the best player in the draft. And when you say best in Jaguars, that's not something that you usually hear in the same sentence. But for this weekend, the Jaguars came into the draft with more draft picks over the next 2 years than any team. They got rid of some of them and say, let's just go get Travis Hunter.
I like it, man. I do. But it's kind of crazy. We sat there on, I think Thursday night, a lot of people were like, did that need to happen as far as them being that aggressive? Because I know there's a lot of talk about Jacksonville at 5 going with an offensive player. Maybe it could have been Tyler McMillan who went to the Panthers at 8, or it could have been Ashton Jeanty who went to the Raiders at 6. Instead, like getting up there, getting Travis and making a splash, which is something that the new general manager there clearly wanted to do. And he comes from the Rams organization, who have been saying F them picks for a number of years now. And that was clearly the situation. So maybe it was James Gladstone who's been the one telling them, actually, no.
Maybe it was him. Maybe it was. Right.
Liam Cohen. He absolutely want to make a splash. I'm so happy for Travis, because can you imagine, like for over a month now, you thought you were going to be going to Cleveland, and now you get to go to sunny Jacksonville, Florida. And I understand Jacksonville's the cold part of Florida, whatever. He's like probably 2 hours away from home because he's from Georgia. So I'm happy for him, and I'm very excited to see what that Jags team's going to look like now with him. You got Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor throwing it to him, Travis. Oh, buddy, that could be a fun Jags offense if Liam Cohen can get him going.
It could be extremely fun if Liam Cohen can get him going. They added Diami Brown, speed wide receiver. I like the fact that they were just like, we're going to get fast, but we're just not going to add one speed guy and say, there you go, we got our speed guy. No, we're making everybody fast. They even signed the fastest running back and the fastest safety in the draft also. So they were just like, no, we just have a need for juice on this team. I'm going to listen to Tyler Roland because contrary to popular belief, the Jaguars did not pick first. Cam Ward actually went first. Dude wasn't even on the stage before they started talking about the trade. And it's like, ain't nobody talking about. I think the Jaguars got tired of people saying Trayvon Walker is the least talked about first overall pick ever. And they said, no, we're going to turn that into Cam Ward at least for a day, because that's exactly what they did. Listen to Tyler Roland. He's going to give a grade to the Tennessee Titans grades for their draft.
What grade would you give the Tennessee Titans draft? For me, it's a B+ for 2025. Cam Ward's going to come in and elevate right away. Gunnar Helm is going to help this offense right away, in my opinion. I think both the wide receivers can come in and make an impact, and some of the later day 3 guys like a Superman Mullins can really help on special teams. I think Kevin Winston, even coming back from the ACL, can be a solid role player for the Titans as a third safety. And then I think Femi Oladejo is going to be one of the top 4 edge rushers who can be an early down run defender as he starts to develop his pass rush skills as a full-time edge. But I'm giving the Tennessee Titans draft an A- for the future. I think that Kevin Winston and Femi Oladejo can turn into high-level players for the Titans. Femi probably a strong number 2 edge, and I think Winston could be one of the top safeties in the entire NFL. You pair that with Cam Ward's potential and then the weapons that they added on day 3, B+ for 2025, A- for the future for my draft grade for the Tennessee Titans in 2025.
Man, when I was in school, I wish I had professors like that that would give me 1 grade for the day and say, I'll turn it into something else tomorrow if you act right and come in here dressed appropriately. It's a C right now, Mr. Wiggins, but it'll be a B if you just look the part for the next couple of weeks. My man Tyler's on a heater when he talk about those Titans, man.
For me, every draft grade for every team is a C until 3 years from now when we see how everything's played out. Like I do that on my show. I'll go back after they play their first 3 seasons and then go look back at that draft class and really give it a true grade. Like I'll give them a draft grade because hell, and we got to do this 5 days a week. So we got to come up with something to talk about. So that's what we do with the draft grades. They're always pretty pointless, but we'll see. I don't know if you're pointing out day 3 weapons for your quarterback. Okay, you're not drafting people in day 3 and expecting them to be key contributors for you. Maybe in a couple of years because of development, but still we see every year you're trying to get like your true starters on day 1 and day 2, and then hopefully day 3 guys can develop or can be those diamonds in the rough. So we'll see what that ends up being for Tennessee. But I don't think it's a great infrastructure for Cam Ward. I hope it works out for him. And maybe it's a good thing that he's been under-discussed because of the Shedeur Sanders of it all and Travis Hunter and Jacksonville making that big trade to go up there and get him.
I gave the Jags an A on the pod I recorded last night. And the reason I gave them an A is because of the functionality of what they did. They made a concerted effort to go up and get the guy with the juice. They gave up next year's first. They got bold. They got Travis Hunter, who I believe is the top. I think Travis Hunter is the top 3 draft in any draft I've seen in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they said, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go get him. And that's why I gave him an A. We're going to have to see how it all plays out. A lot of that is how they use it. You know, but in terms of the functioning part of it, I can't talk too much about the performance of the players because we have to see how they respond. But in terms of good grades, I also thought Carolina did a good job because you don't have the tallest quarterback in the world. You gave him a catch radius wide receiver. You continue to touch on a lot of things up in Carolina, up in Charlotte, man. And we talk about David Tepper a lot. But let me tell you something. Ever since that Dave Canales hiring, it seems like a lot of things that they have done organizationally with Dan Morgan, and you'll speak to it because you cover them every day. They're doing okay, man. Just, you know, as long as he doesn't throw a cup of ice on somebody or something like that, it seems like the Carolina Panthers are slowly inching their way towards a lot of credibility in the National Football League.
Yeah, I like what they did as far as getting Ted McMillan. I was surprised that was the pick, more so because a guy like Jalen Walker, who had been constantly mocked to Carolina, was on the board, that Michael Williams was on the board at positions that I felt like were of greater need than wide receiver. But I did feel like going in the draft, they needed to upgrade that position. That with Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, David Moore, 2 guys I'm sure people don't even know who they are, they needed to do something else. They needed to try to find that alpha in that room, and that could potentially be Ted McMillan. They might not have gotten an edge rusher on night 1, but they did double up on day 2 and get Nick Scorton and Princely Uman-Mielen. They went out there and got Trevor Etienne to potentially be their running back of the future. Jonathan Brooks, who tore his ACL for the 2nd time in 13 months back in November, is not able to bounce back into who he was when they decided to draft him a year ago. So I do like what they did. Now, there's another team that I want to say I did like what Dallas did. When you're looking at it, because this is a team that they always want to find flashy players. But I do think, like, when you looked at Zach Barton retiring, you needed to find a replacement. They got Tyler Booker from Alabama. Like, that's a really good move. And in day 2, a guy I just don't understand how he's not a first-round pick. Donovan Ezeraku was a dog this past year at Boston College. Maybe it's because he played at BC, but the NFL doesn't really care where you play. Like, if you can play, they'll find you. Was really good a couple years ago as well. And how he doesn't go in the first round is beyond me, but Dallas gets him. And I think that he can be an absolute star, no pun intended, down there. And you look at round 3 as well. Siobhan Revelle from ECU, had he not torn his ACL back in September, he may have been a first-round selection.
Probably would have gone to Pittsburgh because they love guys built like that.
So we're talking about 3 guys that they got across the first 3 rounds that all probably at some point in time had a first-round grade, or I think our first-round caliber talent. I like Jaden Blue from Texas, as they needed to figure out their running back spot. Phil Maffa as a late-round flyer. I like that as well. I really do think that Dallas did a good job in this draft class as well, man. So I like what Carolina did, but I look at Dallas as another team where, again, whenever Dak Prescott's healthy, they win football games. He stays healthy, they'll be right there contending for the NFC East. And then with these additions, I think that keeps the thing rolling as well.
Honorable mention for me, that's all great points, by the way. Since you did it, I'll do it. Honorable mention for me is the Patriots. Because Vrabel didn't Vrabel. I thought, he did in the first round when he took Will Campbell. But everybody knows they need offensive linemen, right? What if he is Matt Light 2.0?
Mm-hmm.
So what? That's a long career for a guy who was able to contribute to championships. I like what they did with the rest of the roster because it didn't seem it just didn't seem like he was doing what you thought he was going to do and just draft a whole bunch of Northeasterners who, are grimy. And he went and got some playmakers that could really help that football team up. So I'll give Mike Vrabel a lot of credit. I'm going to give credit to the Bengals a little bit too in segment 2. We're going to talk about them. Matter of fact, we're going to hang around Ohio because we got to get into the Cleveland quarterback situation and, of course, Shedeur Sanders. We waited 11 minutes to mention his name, I think, as far as a subject matter. I hope Mel Kiper doesn't call in and scream on me and try to get me canned because I waited too long to talk about Shedeur Sanders. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of NBA playoff games. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it easy and fast to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky-high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's why I use Game Time, because of the priority last-minute deals. I love saving money, and saving up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, comedy, concerts, and theater is the move. And the all-in pricing means there's no surprise fees to check out. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'll spell it, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, ripping and running with my man Julian Council here on a Monday edition of Locked On NFL PM. We got to get to the story that we could not get away from this weekend, and that is about Shedeur Sanders. A lot of the narrative is like, well, why did they pick Dylan Gabriel? As if Dylan Gabriel didn't go 2 rounds prior to Shedeur Sanders. But that question was answered by Spencer Graham a little bit from Locked On Browns. Or Spencer German, my bad. I called that man Spencer Graham. I know Graham crackers are brown and they kind of look like the Cleveland uniform. I know I'm bad with names. All right, so here we go. Spencer German with Locked On Browns. Check this out.
Everything seemed to be going fine for the Cleveland Browns on day 2 of the NFL draft. And then Dylan Gabriel happened. Even with the controversy that came with taking Mason Graham, trading back, not taking Travis Hunter. And then today, starting the day with the Carson Schlesinger pick, where I think it left some people perplexed that they went defense with their first 2 picks, given all the needs they have on offense. They did address some of those needs, which we'll get into. But one of the needs on offense that they finally came around to addressing was at the quarterback position when they stunned everybody with pick 94, the one they got from the Bills in the Amari Cooper trade, by drafting Dylan Gabriel at quarterback over the likes of Shedeur Sanders, who continues to slide. There's a whole the national narrative obviously is centered around Shedeur's falling this far through the draft. As far as why the Browns aren't taking him, we can speculate on that. We'll talk about that here a little bit. But Will Howard's still on the board. They took Dylan Gabriel over him. Like, the first place my mind went was, were they interested in Milroe a couple picks sooner, where he went to Seattle? And because he goes, then they were like, well, here comes the run on quarterbacks. And they sort of said, we're going to get the guy that we like. So they took Dylan Gabriel, who was maybe graded as the next guy they liked. And they legitimately said after the pick was made that they liked Dylan. They spent a lot of time with Dylan in Eugene and elsewhere. And that they felt like, that he was a player that fits what they wanted to do, that he was super accurate. They brushed off the idea of him being a shorter statured quarterback. 5'10" is his listed height.
You can brush it off all you want to. He's still 5'10". I don't care how you want to look past it. It is what it is. But if there's a quarterback in Northern Ohio that I feel sorry for, it ain't Shedeur Sanders, who fell to round 5. It's Dylan Gabriel, who he got picked ahead of. He's not going to beat that kid out. Shedeur's going to beat him, and I almost wonder if Cleveland says, we need to take Shedeur, but we need to take something that's going to put a chip on his shoulder first. I mean, I'm serious now. I know that sounds really, really weird, but I don't like the evaluation of Dylan Gabriel. I do like the fact that they did go take a flyer on Shedeur, but I don't like a lot of the talk that's surrounding Shedeur, like, this is only because he's black. As if Cam Ward wasn't taking number 1. I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's
we knew that this was not a top-rated quarterback class heading into this, and we knew that Cam Ward was the only guy who surefire was going to be going in the top 10. And I was surprised that Jackson Dart ended up being drafted in the first round. I can understand the Giants' willingness to go get a player who can be their future. I just don't think Jackson Dart is a first-round talent. I didn't think really anyone in this draft class is a first-round talent. Like, let's be honest, last year, I know things change. Cam Ward went out there, had a hell of a season in Miami, and that things can very quickly change. Like, no one had Zach Wilson on their draft radar as a top 2 pick before that season in 2020 when BYU played nobody, and he had a great season and got drafted 2nd overall, and we saw how that played out. But Cam Ward would have been the 7th quarterback. And if we look at the guys from their past rookie year, are you taking Cam Ward over any of them? Are you taking him over Jaden Daniels? No. Are you taking him over Bo Nix, Drake May? Are you Michael Penix Jr.? Like, who of those 6 from last year who went in the first round, who are you taking Cam Ward over any of them at this point in time? Like, I'm not. So
not in hindsight, right?
No,
yeah.
This is not a great quarterback class. And I mean, Shedeur, it's a lot of it's about physical tools. Like Tyler Shuck, that's a guy who's got bad Carfax. He's been injured a ton of times, but he's now getting an opportunity because he has the physical tools. And like, he always had the talent, and he was able to show this past year at Jeff Brom at Louisville. And you look at Jalen Milroe, a question of as him as a pure passer, but the athleticism is elite. He has those kind of traits. So you take a flyer on him if you're Seattle. Like, the traits oftentimes are what get you taken. That's why the Dylan Gabriel thing was so confusing to me. He doesn't have them. Doesn't have a great arm. He's a left-handed throwing quarterback, which there can be some concerns about this because of the rotation of the ball different than what a right-hander is. Well, that's why we have left-footed punters out there. Thank you, Bill Belichick, and all of that. So he played 6 years in college, wasn't particularly like outstanding at UCF, Oklahoma, or at Oregon. He's 24 years old. Like, that's just a weird selection. Like, Quinn Ewers would have made more sense to me. I don't think particularly high of Quinn Ewers, but I do think he makes more sense as a prospect than Dylan Gabriel. Same case with Will Howard. Don't think particularly high of him, but I think he's a better prospect than Dylan Gabriel. Like, that was weird to me that they took him at all. It's not that they took him, then they took Shedeur. It's like, why did you think Dylan Gabriel was worthy of a day 2 pick? And then, 2 days later, it's Shedeur. So, like, I think Shedeur's a good quarterback. I never felt like he was a first-round talent. We're only talking about this because he's Deion's kid, and that's what's annoying. Like, quite honestly, I just don't care. I don't really care to discuss somebody who never had the day 1 talent, and the media cared more about him than the actual teams. If you listen to anybody leading him to the draft who actually covered it from the team perspective, they were telling you they don't see him like that. But the obsession over Colorado, which wasn't a good football team 2 years ago, and weren't even that great this past year either, and all the talk, like, that's what leads to this hype to where you felt like he dropped. Like, I do think he dropped because he should have been a day 2 pick. But, like, first rounder, no, he never dropped out of the first round because he never was that talented of a player to be a first-round pick and does not have the size and the traits to put him in there. So it's just crazy to me just that we have to keep talking about this when he's just not that good. He's not good enough to be selected then.
Right. And the thing about it is, he acts like he is. He walks like he is. He carries himself like he is. He talks like he is. He has expectations like he is. And from what I heard, and these are things that's been reported, is that one meeting in particular didn't go real well with Brian Daboll and the Giants, and he got called out on it and he didn't like it. So let me go on a little bit of a diatribe here.
Do it.
Quarterback is a very unique position. And you've had some guys with wild personalities be quarterbacks, but I bet you they were really good. I bet you everybody in the NBA can't act like Dennis Rodman because, well, they ain't Dennis Rodman, right? And I think that there's a disconnect here. When you are the face of something, they want you to conduct yourself a certain way. Not that there's something wrong with you being the way you're being over here. But when you're the face of something, they know what they think they want that to look like because there are so many other people depending on you. And you can't be self-absorbed. And even if you're not self-absorbed, you can't come across like you're self-absorbed. Football is a very, very different thing. Baseball starters, you got 4 or 5 of them, right? Football, when you're the quarterback, you are more than just a dude that is handing the ball off and that's throwing the ball down the field. And these teams, like for instance, Ja Morant, has he broken any laws? No. People in this country talk about guns all the time, like guns are their pet dog, right? All he did, he showed a gun, and then he's doing his fingers like this. And I might sound like an old man, but I understand why the NBA gets upset at him. But I also understand why people defend Ja because they're treating him like he's some sort of a criminal, right? The reason why is because you are one of the faces of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and they don't want you around here acting like NBA young boy. That's just it. And
they are, man.
Yeah, and I sound like an old curmudgeon because guess what? I'm from the hood, but I kind of came an old curmudgeon because I want these dudes to understand what they're facing and what they're dealing with, and I want to see them successful. What are you getting out of doing that kind of stuff? What are you getting out of being all the rap videos? Nobody wants their backup quarterback being like that, bro. They want the backup quarterback to be humble and carry people's gear and support the starter and be ready just in case your name is called. That job, too, is a very unique job. Ask Jameis Winston how humble you have to be. Jameis Winston doesn't act like he acted like when he came out of Florida State because he knows he can't be that guy anymore. It's just common sense, man. And people are making this something more than it's not. Mel Kiper ought to be ashamed of himself for sitting up there acting like he can draft people better than other people when he won't even talk about the people that he missed on last year. They need to stop this foolishness, man. The people who did it, who do this job for real, spoke, and we need to listen to whatever it was that they said. All right, man. So we're going to press on here, talk about the Bengals. We'll hit the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Commanders here in our final segment of Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you by Nissan Armada. The Nissan Armada pick of the week is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan and that all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. This week, we're highlighting the top pick from our draft, the one selection that truly stood out, the one guy who showcased the strength and power to push the team, the Jaguars, that is, forward as we look ahead to next season. That is who you think. It's Travis Hunter, this week's clear-cut top pick of the draft. That's who it is. It's Travis Hunter. Impact is tremendous on and off the field. Just exemplifies every single thing that the new organizational leadership has discussed that they wanted this team to be about being bold. It's about doing things, thinking outside of the box and just getting people in this organization that work hard, sun up to sundown, and that love football. And guess who's just like Travis Hunter? That's the Nissan Armada. When they say go forth and conquer, that's exactly what I think Travis Hunter can do here in Jacksonville. It's clear that our top pick of the draft is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any other outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Road Pathfinder, and go find your next big adventure. All right, rolling along here on Locked On NFL with my man Julian Council on the Monday after the 2025 draft has concluded. I'm going to give a little bit of credit to the Bengals for making a real solid pick. It's traits related. He doesn't have a lot of production, but I believe Shedeur Stewart is a bang pick for them, especially since, well, they spent a lot of money on wide receivers, and most people said that they were neglecting their defense. Check this out.
With the 17th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Shedeur Stewart, edge, Texas A&M. Let's bring in Locked On Cincinnati Bengals host, Jake Lisco. Jake, was this the pick you expected at 17 and was the right one for the Bengals?
It was the pick that I expected today. It's not the pick that I expected yesterday. It's not the pick that I expected when the Arizona Cardinals were on the clock. But as soon as the Arizona Cardinals selected Walter Nolan, I thought that Shedeur Stewart was next in line for the Cincinnati Bengals. I hoped for a Derek Harmon here. That was probably the favorite for me at that point in time. But I did expect that the Bengals would really like Shedeur Stewart, and they did, and they took that bet.
The Bengals took a chance on traits and upside and got the big defensive end from Texas A&M. Let me give them a little bit of credit for this one because they could have very easily chosen somebody that had a large body of work at another position, but they went with what a scout probably would have wanted them to go to. And we always talk about their scouting department. Plus or minus for the Bengals adding a big defensive end to go opposite Trey Hendrickson.
Minus. I think it's a terrible pick. You're not going to talk me into Shedeur Stewart being the guy that Cincinnati should have taken here. 4.5 sacks in 3 years in the SEC at A&M. I mean, that's the best conference in college football. You can't produce there. And with that body type, when are you going to produce? And I know people talk about, the scheme last year that Mike Elko ran, which is also a scheme that he ran a couple years ago when I think Shedeur first got to A&M before Elko took the Duke job. Was not very aggressive. Okay. Still, you got one-on-one matchups, beat them, and you didn't do it. So, no. I don't like this at all. They need to pay Trey Hendrickson because they don't have anybody else at this point in time, in my opinion. How many times have we seen a guy who didn't do jack in college come to the NFL and be a star? Terrible pick. The only reason he's up there is because he looks pretty. And that's NFL is about traits. That's why it's all about the Gabriel thing. It's kind of crazy. Like, he doesn't have the traits, so why is he going day 3? He might have produced, but it's not like he was like amazing. Like, and Stewart didn't produce. He just looks good. It's just the measurables. It's all the combine BS. It's not football. You turn on the tape and you see him not doing anything. So you now think in the NFL and the AFC North that's going to change? That's crazy to me, man. That's a terrible pick. Guys like Ezeraku, so much better than this dude. So I don't even understand how he, other than the fact that he's like 6'5", 245, blah, blah, blah. That's the only reason you get drafted that high. Who cares? You can't play football.
By the way, I love the accent there, Julian. See, Julian and I, we don't always line up and agree with each other. We disagree on that, and it's okay. We ain't going to fight each other and start screaming and you don't know what you're talking about. But okay, but man, you need to pipe down. Check out my man, Lou DiBiase. He's going to talk about something the Eagles almost did and thought about. And boy, well, this has been funny. Check out Lou talking about a quarterback situation in the draft.
All right, so the Philadelphia Eagles add much-needed slot cornerback depth after losing Avonte Maddox this offseason. They just drafted UCF corner Mac McWilliams at pick 145. But I want to talk more about what happened to pick right in front of the Birds. The Cleveland Browns moved up one spot in front of Howie Roseman to take Shedeur Sanders. Ian Rappaport said earlier today there were rumors around the league the Eagles might be interested in Sanders at some point today. I think they were going to do it. And thank God, Howie Roseman's been getting sniped a lot today. Thank God the Browns sniped him from doing this because it just would not have been worth it. The distractions, the media talking about this all summer. If Jalen Hurts is a bad game, WIP is going to get all over this. I don't think Sanders even fits as a backup to Jalen Hurts. He's not that mobile. I really believe in Tanner McKee. You got DTR in here as well. Just wouldn't have been worth it. And I'm sick of the Eagles' backup quarterbacks always getting in the headlines. You have a Super Bowl MVP quarterback, we're good. We're good.
Well, Lou, to be honest, you won in 2017. Your backup quarterback won the MVP of the Super Bowl. So that's probably why that's the case. I personally disagree with him. I think that would have been a great scenario. There would not have been any expectation that he was going to play. There would not have been a whole bunch of people clamoring for him. Jalen Hurts just won the freaking MVP of the Super Bowl himself. That changes everything on the outlook for Jalen Hurts. I thought it would have been a great selection.
Is Tanner McKee super mobile? Did I miss something from my time watching that Stanford?
And I saw him here in Jacksonville. He ain't super mobile either. Kenny Pickett wasn't either last year. So,
like when your backups are Tanner McKee and DTR, I don't know if you can be like sticking your
We
nose
good,
in, like,
right?
with the idea of like Shedeur Sanders being there. Like I can understand like the distraction, but like isn't the same organization that took Jalen Carter, who had actually fallen in the draft because of the off the field incident that he was involved in there in Athens, where lives were lost. He came in there, he stepped in line, and he played well. So I think if any organization can handle the distraction, which I think is so overrated, it would have been Philadelphia. But well, whatever, it didn't happen. The Eagles didn't get Shedeur, and I think it's better off for Shedeur because he's not going to play in Philly. It's Jalen Hurts' team. So going to Cleveland is still the best situation. Even if it was after Dylan Gabriel, even if they have Flacco, they got Kenny Pickett, he can get a chance. He'll actually have an opportunity to win. To not win, but to actually play. Where in Philadelphia, it's going to take Jalen Hurts, getting hurt and like then being like let go by the team for you to ever be their franchise quarterback.
No doubt about it. Real quick, Washington, both of us have a little history. I believe you told me your dad used to be up in the DC area. I went to my first NFL game in RFK Stadium. I'll even tell y'all when it was. Ironically, I went to a preseason game involving Cleveland and Washington prior to me going in the Air Force. And as a gift for me to go to Germany in 1990, I saw Bill Parcells beat Joe Gibbs. I don't know who was returning punch, but he fumbled the ball in the fourth quarter, and I almost lost it. But the stadium's shaking. Washington is going back to RFK in Southeast DC. Nostalgia-wise, it feels good, man. And I'm kind of happy. If you're familiar with the area, most people don't know. I lived in Maryland and probably lived closer to RFK than I did to that stadium they got out in Landover. So it's a little bit, it's weird. It makes it sound like they're coming from an hour away. No, they're coming from about 15 minutes away on the other side of the line. But for people that know about this franchise, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, my cousin used to work at the Armory right across the street from RFK.
Right across, yeah.
So that's the last time I've actually been over in that area a couple of years ago. But yeah, my dad grew up a Redskins fan. Washington fan. His brother was a Cowboys fan, so you can imagine how
it was always infighting.
Yeah, so he was always a Washington fan, never passed along that sickness to me, fortunately. But he did raise me in Charlotte with a team that right now has not been having the best success in recent years. And then my grandmother, my mom's mother, her grandmother lives up there, has lived in DC. So always had the DC connection, love the city, and happy for all the Washington fans out there that they're going to be back in the city, back in the district and playing over that RFK. And I think it's just great to have a stadium like right there within the city. I know it became one of the models. I was just in Philadelphia yesterday, and I love what they have out there. That sports complex, really cool.
Oh man, that Xfinity Live is something, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's cool you can have the stadium right there in the city. I know that's how it is in Charlotte. I think Jacksonville's kind of that way as well, where the stadium's kind of right. Tennessee, it might be across the river, but it's right across from Broadway and downtown. I always love those where it's like that, opposed to like having to travel all about to Glendale for the game for the Arizona, or like Dallas, all the way to Arlington and all that. Cool to have the complex, but really cool when it's like right there in the heart of the city, and you can just be in a neighborhood going out there and playing. It's kind of like in Europe with soccer. A lot of those games are just like in a neighborhood.
Just right in the neighborhood, and trust me, those people are wild and crazy because I lived in Europe for 3 years, and I'm telling you, that's why I understand why soccer's so big. The thing about DC, it's changed a lot. I used to work at a club right there on 901st Street in Southeast, which isn't far from Benning Road, which is where this down in Simple City area where this stadium is going to go. And I'm going to tell you something. It's different. It ain't the same as it used to be. It's gentrified, right? It's like people walking the dogs around there now. It wasn't like that before. Dogs were walking people back then, but now it's totally changed. So good that DC is getting back to its roots and going back into the city. They already have their facility in Virginia, and then they played their games in Maryland. They really did nothing in Washington, but now they will. All right, so we'll do it every single day here on Locked On NFL. Make sure you tap into us and then make your second listen. The Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. They'll give you the information that will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. For Julian Counsel, for Tony Wiggins, thank you for spending 34 minutes with us today. We'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.